raw venison, raw quail egg, lime zest, olive oil, scallops, caviar, and grated white chocolate. That must be one of the worst combinations I've ever tasted in 21 years of cooking.
Hell's Kitchen is meant to turn talented chefs into true professionals, but sometimes it does the exact opposite. Instead of amazing food, it delivers pure disasters. Culinary catastrophes like raw meat on the plate, hair mixed into dishes, and flavor combinations so bad that Gordon Ramsay can't even hide his disgust. These are mistakes so serious that dinner service comes to a complete halt. Guests are left waiting, teams fall apart, and Ramsay sometimes has to step in because he has no choice. What makes these moments worse isn't just the food, but the decisions behind it. Chefs who don't check their plates, those who ignore clear instructions, and worst of all, chefs who know something is wrong and send out their dishes anyway. One of the most infamous food disasters in Hell's Kitchen history came from a chef who didn't just mess up once. He doubled down, lied when confronted, and somehow he still served raw food to customers. What followed became one of the most talked about kitchen shutdowns the show has ever seen. That chef was Zach Womack. Zach entered Hell's Kitchen Season 11 with confidence, perhaps too much confidence because he also had a habit of ignoring instructions. While his attitude was controversial from the start, his most revolting moment came during a children's charity dinner service in episode 10, a night that should have demanded extra care and responsibility. Instead, Zach did the unthinkable. He was caught reheating salmon after Gordon Ramsay explicitly told him not to. When confronted, Zach didn't admit the mistake. He lied about it twice. Ramsay asked him directly if the fish had been reheated, and Zach denied it both times. When Ramsay pressed further, the truth came out in the worst possible way. The salmon was sent to the dining room raw, not undercooked, not even slightly translucent, but completely raw. To make matters even worse, this raw salmon ended up on plates meant for kids. Ramsay immediately shut the service down and exploded, calling the act dangerous and disgusting.
Look at me in the f***ing eyes. Did you take salmon from the back and reheat it?
I tried to.
Yes or no?
No, chef, it's right here.
Shut the off the salmon. Somebody else cooked f***ing salmon.
This wasn't about taste anymore, but food safety. Raw salmon can carry parasites and bacteria, and serving it knowingly after reheating and lying crossed a line few contestants ever have. Zach was ejected from the kitchen on the spot. What made this moment especially vile wasn't just the raw fish, but the deception. Ramsay has forgiven many mistakes over the years, but what he rarely tolerates is being lied to, especially when the consequences land on unsuspecting diners. This moment cemented Zach's reputation as one of the most reckless chefs ever to be in Hell's Kitchen. But raw salmon isn't the only way to disgust Gordon Ramsay. Sometimes all it takes are some fries. The next disaster proves that even the most basic food can become revolting in the wrong hands. Because not every disgusting moment in Hell's Kitchen comes from strange ingredients or risky ideas. Sometimes the most embarrassing failures come from the simplest foods on the menu. When pressure exposes weak fundamentals, even something basic can turn into a disaster. This incident involved Heather and Jen during a disastrous service where the garnish station completely collapsed. The exact pairing occurred during Season 18, a season already infamous for poor teamwork and weak fundamentals. Fries should be impossible to mess up in Hell's Kitchen. And yet, Heather and Jen sent raw fries to the pass for inspections. They weren't even under-seasoned or overcooked, but raw, pale, and crunchy on the outside, cold and uncooked on the inside. When Ramsay bit into them, he didn't need to scream immediately. His face showed pure disbelief. Something that simple, something that basic, had been butchered so badly that it shut down the service. Ramsay held the fries up and asked how it was even possible to send them out uncooked in a professional kitchen. There was no clever excuse, no redemption moment, just silence and embarrassment from the two culprits. This made the situation even harder to believe because making fries isn't that complicated. Sending them out raw showed bad timing, poor control of the station, and a complete lack of focus. That was an unacceptable mistake, the kind that can send a chef home. Ramsay made it clear that if a chef can't get fries right, they have no business cooking under his roof.
Stop. Hey, blue team. Blue team, stop. Hey, look what we're down to.
After watching raw fries delivered to the pass and Gordon Ramsay visibly showing his disgust at such a basic failure, you might be tempted to think you've seen one of the most shocking kitchen fails in recent memory. But the levels of culinary disaster in this show go even deeper. sometimes involving questionable ingredient combinations and outright dangerous undercooking that brings service to a complete halt. In Season 9, Tommy and Jonathan were tasked with delivering a creative flatbread during a challenge judged by culinary legend Wolfgang Puck, a guest judge with some serious standards. What should have been a memorable moment quickly turned into a cringeworthy spectacle. Rather than serve a classic, balanced pizza, the two chefs presented a flatbread topped with honey and white truffle, a pairing so odd that Puck joked about its absurdity and noted how unconventional it was compared to traditional pizza expectations. The dish was greeted with confusion rather than approval. Puck even quipped that in Italy, something like that might get you more than just criticism, you'd be arrested for disrespecting the tradition of pizza. This could be classified as worse than simply being a bad dish. It was a misunderstanding of the cuisine itself, served to one of the most respected chefs in the world. The judges' reactions spoke for themselves. The chef's failure to present a dish that made sense under pressure resulted in one of the most disgusting and bewildering plates ever shown on Hell's Kitchen.
What is that?
I have a flatbread pizza.
What is that? Where did you see a pizza like this?
I haven't, Chef, honestly.
I mean, if you go to Italy, they arrest you for that, you know that.
If unusual pizza was bizarre, Season 20 provided something even more alarming. Raw chicken so undercooked it also disrupted the dinner service. Blue Team's chef Alex Lennox found himself at the center of one of the most gut-wrenching disasters in Hell's Kitchen history, because he served raw chicken not once but twice in the same dinner service. Alex was in charge of the chicken station during a tense dinner service. As orders came in, multiple plates left the kitchen with chicken that was still clearly pink in the center, a mistake so obvious even guest judge Curtis Stone could see it from the dining room. Ramsay didn't just scold him, he stopped the service, pulled the team out of the kitchen, and made it clear that this level of undercooking was unacceptable in any professional kitchen. This situation was unsafe and proved the team's loss of control, timing, communication, and basic cooking knowledge. Ramsay straight up walked out to regroup, ending the service prematurely, which is extremely rare. This shows just how disgusting and dangerous undercooked chicken is in a high-stakes restaurant setting.
Chicken's totally undercooked.
It's that raw, even Kirsty can see it from over there. Get out! All of you!
After seeing raw chicken bring dinner service to a halt, it's clear that the disasters on Hell's Kitchen don't ease up. If anything, they get worse. Some chefs don't just send out bad food, they serve dishes that are unsafe or so poorly thought out they leave everyone uncomfortable. One of the most infamous examples came from Matt, whose signature dish was so awful it triggered a physical reaction from Gordon Ramsay himself. In Season 4, contestants were asked to create dishes that showcased their style and skill. Chef Matt Siegel decided to present what he called an exotic tartar, a raw mixture of diver scallops, raw venison, raw quail egg, caviar, lime zest, olive oil, capers, and white chocolate. When Ramsay first heard the ingredients list, he asked incredulously if he was being punked and even joked about whether the chef smoked. Such was the absurdity of the combination. Then came the tasting. Ramsay took a bite, chewed for several tense seconds, and then violently retched into a nearby bin from the combination. Ramsay called the flavor mashup one of the worst combinations he'd ever tasted in 21 years of cooking. The plate was tossed out, and Matt stood there confused, insisting he didn't understand why the dish was so terrible. After Matt's bizarre signature dish, another cooking mishap worthy of note happened in Season 10, this time not just on a plate, but in a full dinner service meltdown. One of the most notorious raw meat disasters came in Episode 4, where a chef repeatedly failed the basics and absolutely crushed his chances with raw beef and stubborn behavior. In this episode, contestants were tasked with delivering flawless service on classic steakhouse orders, including beef Wellington and refined cuts of beef. But Don struggled badly. Instead of cooking his Wellington thoroughly, he sent out pieces that were raw or dangerously undercooked, forcing Ramsay and teammates to deal with a disaster in the dining room. Worse still, when Ramsay pressed him on how long the meat had been cooking, Don kept shouting 1 minute over and over, even though the food was clearly not close to being ready. His teammates called him out, but instead of checking the meat or fixing the problem, he stuck to the same timeline. Minutes passed, the food still wasn't done, and his repeated promises went from hopeful to ridiculous. Ramsay finally lost his patience. When another raw sirloin and a failed Wellington hit the pass, he didn't hesitate. He kicked Don out of the kitchen in the middle of service. It was a rare and humiliating exit, and it sent a clear message. If you can't handle basic cooking, you don't belong in a professional kitchen. That's all there is to it. The mistakes were simply unacceptable.
Oh my God. Yeah, stop! Stop! You keep me waiting, then they arrive in the window, medium well. And you're telling me, 1 minute, I come back 4 minutes later and it's still 1 minute. Get out! Cough.
While Don's disgrace came from undercooked basics, another season 10 chef crossed a different line, turning bad cooking into something far more disturbing. If raw beef is bad, serving things that should never be on a plate is another level. Contestant Royce Wagner in Hell's Kitchen Season 10 did something chefs are taught to avoid at all costs. He left a long hair and parts of the lobster's digestive sac in a lobster dish, and then attempted to serve it to Michelin-star judges. The lobster's digestive sac, sometimes called the tamale or hepatopancreas, isn't toxic in all cases but is generally removed before service because it tastes bitter and can contain grit. Combining that with a customer finding a hair strand turned a bad dish into a truly disgusting culinary moment. Footage and fan reactions show this as one of Ramsay's strongest reactions that season. The entire kitchen went quiet and the chefs looked shocked and embarrassed. The judges didn't even need to taste it. Just looking at the plate was disgusting enough. This moment is a classic example of how poor execution and basic hygiene mistakes can make a dish not just bad, but horrifying in a professional kitchen. The show's catalog of culinary horrors doesn't stop there. Sometimes a dish isn't unsafe, it's just terribly presented. Few episodes illustrate that better than one where a chef's attempt at a simple French classic turned into something Gordon Ramsay openly mocked with unforgettable humor. In Hell's Kitchen Season 6, contestants faced a challenge that should have been straightforward: making a series of crepes, one of the most classic French dishes. But not only did Dave's crepe miss the mark, it shocked Ramsay with how unappetizing it looked. Presented with cream cheese and mixed berry filling, the crepe looked nothing like what was expected. Instead of a delicate, thin pancake with a beautifully balanced filling, Ramsay described it in the most brutal culinary insult possible: it looks like a plate of diarrhea. That line, crude as it was, summed up the visual disaster perfectly, and quickly became a phrase fans repeated when talking about the show's worst dishes. The failure was both a technical and an aesthetic horror. In Hell's Kitchen, presentation counts almost as much as taste, especially under Ramsay's watch. Dave's crepe failure wasn't the last time the kitchen went quiet in disbelief. Soon after, another chef stepped forward with a dish that crossed from bad cooking into something truly disturbing. That chef was Antonia from Season 8. Antonia's dish is infamous for its poor execution, and also for the fact that it was actively disgusting. In Hell's Kitchen Season 8, Episode 1, Antonia presented a Mardi Gras gumbo during a signature dish challenge that was so off in texture, color, and flavor that Chef Ramsay literally gagged. Ramsay is known for his high standards, but even he couldn't hide his visceral reaction. He spit the gumbo out and had several contestants taste it just to prove how bad it was, because it looked like a big bowl of mud, and even inspired comments comparing the taste to something foul. What made the moment even worse was that Ramsay made the other chefs taste it after he refused to finish it himself. Instead of disgust being implied, everyone in the kitchen had to experience it firsthand. That single moment turned the episode into one of the most unforgettable disasters in Hell's Kitchen.
It's a Mardi Gras gumbo.
Oh, God. Does it normally look like a plate of liquid shit?
No.
Oh, excuse me. In hell.
God.
Are you crazy? Big man.
Yes, sir.
You like your food? Take a mouthful. Pass it along.
After Antonia's personal meltdown with her gumbo, we moved to another duo whose dish was technically valid but culinarily awful: Nilka and Scott from the previous season. In Hell's Kitchen Season 7, Episode 5, Nilka and Scott teamed up on a dish that seemed creative on paper: blood sausage with prunes, but on execution it was muddy, poorly balanced, and visually unappealing. Judges and chefs alike recoiled at the underwhelming combination of intense, dark sausage with cloying fruit that added nothing but confusion and odd sweetness to the plate. These kinds of mismatched flavor profiles, especially involving strong, game-like meats like blood sausage, are challenging even in a professional kitchen, and they completely fell apart under the intense pressure of the Hell's Kitchen service environment. Shifting from signature and challenge dishes to one of the biggest service disasters in Hell's Kitchen history, there's Chef Andy's wedding reception service, an episode so chaotic that it's become a fan reference point for how badly kitchen performance can collapse under real-world pressure. In Hell's Kitchen Season 15, the red and blue teams were tasked with preparing and serving a full wedding reception menu for sous chef Andy and her husband. This was a personal event with high expectations, and the chefs knew that clients weren't just guests, but VIPs and friends of Ramsay and his staff. From the start of dinner service, things unraveled fast. Both teams struggled with timing and basic cooking skills. Risotto portions were all over the place, some plates overloaded, others barely filled. Appetizers fell behind schedule, and raw food problems showed up almost immediately. Scallops stuck to the pans instead of searing, a beginner-level mistake that forced Ramsay to step in and cook them himself. For many viewers, this was the moment Hell's Kitchen stopped feeling like a competition and started looking like pure damage control. But nothing topped what happened with the main courses. Both red and blue teams served undercooked chicken to the wedding head table, plates so dangerously pink that not only did it embarrass the staff, it prompted one of the most awkward service moments ever aired. Guests were left halfway through the meal without a single acceptable entree, and in a dishonorable and embarrassing twist, some tables were rationed food to ensure everyone got at least something. Love or wedding services bring joy, normally, but in this case, it brought raw protein, logistical chaos, and Ramsay stepping in front of guests to save the meal. It was so bad that when the episode wrapped, no team won the service, an extremely rare outcome on the show. Instead, both teams walked away with a shared failure, and someone was eliminated not for a single mistake, but for the collective embarrassment they caused in what was meant to be a celebratory service. Coming off Chef Andy's wedding reception, it felt like Hell's Kitchen had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And yet, Hell's Kitchen has a way of reminding us that not every disgusting moment is loud or chaotic. Sometimes the most uncomfortable disasters happen quietly, which is what happened with Chef Petroza. During the Signature Dish Challenge, Petroza proudly presented what can only be described as a greasy pumpkin-based dish, served whole, with minimal explanation and questionable execution. The dish confused Ramsay the moment he saw it. He couldn't tell if the pumpkin was supposed to be eaten, used as a container, or simply put there for shock value. That uncertainty alone signaled that the dish had already failed. Once Ramsay dug in, the problems multiplied. The pumpkin was excessively greasy, poorly seasoned, and completely unbalanced. Ramsay pointed out that the dish relied heavily on fat without any structure, refinement, or contrast. Instead of elevating a humble ingredient, Petroza had drowned it, producing something closer to a novelty experiment than a composed plate. What made the moment especially uncomfortable was Petroza's confidence going in. He genuinely believed the dish would stand out in a positive way. Instead, Ramsay tore into it, criticizing both the execution and the lack of culinary logic behind the idea. The presentation was clumsy, the seasoning was flat, and the concept itself felt unfinished. Ramsay famously mocked the dish, suggesting that Petroza had put more thought into the gimmick than the flavor. Unlike dishes that are rejected for being raw or unsafe, Petroza's pumpkin failed for a different reason. It had no clear purpose. In Hell's Kitchen, that can be just as bad. Ramsay has always made it clear that creativity still requires skill and flavor behind it, and Petroza's dish violated that rule completely.